welcome to Higher Density Living and part 2 of The Good Life. Who is that lady's voice?
Alexander McCaig and Jason Rigby with Higher Density Living.
The lady doing our intro, it's like the voice, there's like no association with this person.
No, but she's not she's a sixth density being that we
contracted out.
Yeah, contracted out, so she's genderless.
We had to pay in blood.
Yeah, exactly. But we got it figured out.
Yeah.
I want to know Ryan one. It'd be like heavy metal music.
Yeah, like Norwegian death metal, oh my goodness. Relax.
So this is part 2 of an article by Jamie Wheel from the Flow Genome Project on how to find radical hope. And he talks about the good life. And he kind of begins in the French Enlightenment. And he says the French Enlightenment gave birth to liberalism. People, actual individuals, not tribes, clan, faiths, or nation, but actual singular individuals were granted inalienable rights and an increasingly entitled shot at the good life. So let's go a little bit before this. Tribes, clans, faiths, or nations. People weren't individualistic before the French Enlightenment. They were everything was more about for the cause or for the greater good of the kingdom, the clan.
Yes.
If you know what I mean.
So, what does that lead to the good life itself? So this French Enlightenment you're talking about the French Revolution here, 1789. And the major thing here was consent. That if they were going to be governed by the government, move away from this, monarch system, we want consent of saying who's the one that's actually going to rule over us. We need to consent to this ruler, not have God decide who the ruler is for us by some sort of divine right of kings. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I get it.
So when you move into this paradigm, of governance, it's like we are trying to take the first step of decentralization. We're trying to take back our voice because we've been treated by like these peons in this feudal system. We're not really doing anything for us. But the French Revolution skated a little bit where it's like, oh, not only is this for us, but we're entitled to everything. Give us everything. Pay for it. Totally socialist. Take care of it all for us. Not only do we want to have to be the required consent, but we don't really want to be responsible. It was this weird sort of hypocritical paradigm that was happening through this French Enlightenment, right? They were almost on the right path, but then they're like, we don't really want responsibility for anything. We just want to say who can, rule over us, and you can't do it with, anything without us saying so. But I also don't feel like, picking up a shovel and having to do the work at the same time.
But it was interesting during that time. So much art came from that.
Tons of it. Yeah.
Moment. Yeah.
So, what's that one with the lady and her chest is hanging out and it's French Revolution and she's like stepping forward and all the guys behind her and they're like climbing over the Bastille, it's crumbling on the ground or whatever it might be. Like it's all about that idea is, progression, forward movement, all these very dramatic, right? And they put the woman first to say, this feminine energy needs to carry forward to break out of this, patriarchal monarchy that we're currently living in.
Well, even it was, and you can still see some of this old, even family.
Bourgeoisie.
Like, it was, like you can see Game of Thrones and everything's about the family and the bloodline.
Yeah. And it's like, let's leave it. The focus can't be on this bloodline anymore. It's got to be about people.
Right.
It's about the right of the human, right? If that's it's like step towards that egalitarianism. But you can't have egalitarianism, right, without being self-responsible. And the thing is, they didn't want to continue to take on that responsibility. So it was like consent, but, pissing away your responsibility altogether at the same time. It was a very weird dynamic. So keep going.
Yeah, no, and this is interesting. He talks about people, 50 people being, within 50 miles living and never going anywhere outside of that.
Mm-hmm.
So your learning phase, I was thinking about that. I was like, how much can you learn? If you can't read,
what if it's
what I mean?
What if it's like a limited catalyst? So what if you are a farmer and you don't travel very far? What is there to learn? I mean, there's many, unless you focus on every single metaphor of interacting with nature, there's not much that's going to happen for you. But unless you force an experience, like for instance, with Amanda and I, we're going to move into a van
Right.
so that we can travel the world and experience a deeper amount of cultures. There's a lot that I'm experiencing here, but there's also more that needs to be seen.
Yes.
Right? So yeah, there is, depending on the mindset of you, there are limitations within that 50 miles, or there's an unlimited amount of perception that can be learned within that 50 miles.
Yeah, and he gets into that, which I thought is interesting because you use the word see. He talks about what you see is what you get.
Well, it's not...
I mean, but
Ralph
that's,
Waldo Emerson, I think, wrote
Right.
this. It's not about what you're looking at, it's about what you see.
yes.
So, which is much akin to what this gentleman is talking about. Like, what is it that you're seeing? What is it that you're observant to? And not only on the outside, Jason, but what are you observant to within the self?
Yeah, and he gets into this. He said, but for a brief few centuries, as Logos was getting skinnier and Chronos was getting thicker, things lined up in the sweet spot for a rational individual to be able to handle. So we're getting into this rationality, and then we get into Western philosophy and all that. So you see from the French Enlightenment, this move, if we look at this move towards individualism and that I, not I am, but I, that part, and so good things come out of that.
Sure.
Because now you're like you said, I need to take responsibility. I, as an individual, need to, I am my own destiny.
Yes.
Those type of things.
But those are just like the first steps. And I think it ended there because the focus was so much on, this government and control that it was like, well, now what about continuing to expand the self? We've asked for this sort of opening up this freedom, out of the system that we were living in. Well, what are we going to do next? It almost like stopped there, right? There's all this drama and everything behind it, but where did you continue to look after that? What was really seen? How did you continue to carry something like that forward?
Yeah, he says it wasn't perfect, but it was planned. But it sort of worked. He said, I could read Martin Luther's thesis and decide if I want to become a Protestant, a protesting Protestant. I could pick up a political pamphlet and learn to identify with Marxist class struggle, or listen to Tony Robbins' audio cassettes and NLP my way into unstoppable success. So these individual choices we begin to have.
Correct. And these are the choices, right? This is where you start to take those steps. And if you're aware within your 50-mile radius of these choices, great things can happen, great development. But if you're just like, okay, I've earned myself these 50 miles, well, what are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
You're going to start making choices within those 50 miles now?
Right.
What are you going to do next? What's the step you take for your own evolutive gain so that you can go from the I to the I am in the creational sense?
Yeah, and we're at this intersection, especially now, it's 2021, and he says this, but now the frame rate of information has become so intense. The complexities, contradictions, and tragedies of unfiltered reality so dense that we are breaking our hearts and brains.
Yeah, there's so much information coming in at such an accelerated rate. The question is, what do you focus on when you're in it? You're just inundated with so much information. He talked about being overwhelmed when we talked about the previous episode, right? So if this information is overwhelming you, this ability for choice is overwhelming, this catalyst is coming in, what do you make? What is the effective first step at this point in our current time? It's asking you, it's literally forcing you to make a choice. You're forced to make one. Time is almost like consolidating down on itself.
Yes.
Why do weeks feel so quickly? Why do years feel like they pass like in an instant? It's almost almost like a quantum idea of time. It's like being squeezed.
Yeah, and he talks about a hyper-stimulated nervous systems. And he says there's 1,000 places to mark the beginning of the end of individualism. He thinks that's over. But an easy one to timestamp is the advent of MTV. Until that channel debate, most videos consist of stable long shots, continuous framing, and storytelling that decently matched reality as we experience it through our own eyes. And he's like, just, if you watched a classic movie filmed or you saw, like newscasters for 30 minutes, they would sit there with a paper and just like this.
Yeah, but what do you get now?
Yeah. So, yeah, he said the MTV pioneered jump cut edits where every 2 seconds there was a new image spliced, slammed together in a pastiche overwhelm of light, sound, color, and symbols. So it all begins to, you can see this new cadence that begins to happen where we're getting, we went from 3 channels to 30 channels to 300 channels to 3,000. Now we have how many YouTube channels?
An infinite amount. They do grow every day.
Vimo, yeah.
Yeah. And so not only is that happening, like I said, so much choices coming in,
Mm-hmm.
and there's less time, there's less focus. Your focus is so split across so many different things. So the things, what do I want to draw my attention to?
Right.
That's what it's asking. That's the statement here. There was an evolution that happened where it's like, okay, information, how it's being received, like that idea of Instagram, just
Right.
quick 30-second aspects of video and life, all those things. Yeah, it's just one
and TikTok's
after another.
even less than that.
Yeah.
You know, 15 seconds. Like
That's what it is. And so if that's going to be happening,
right.
how are you going to stitch all these different pieces together to create a narrative that actually has some length to it? Like listening to our podcast.
Yeah, yeah.
It's 30,
like
40
long
minutes,
form, yeah.
right? You know, we go back to the old days because we're asking, do you want to afford the time and attention to what we're speaking about?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not for us. It's for actually, frankly, it's for your own narrative.
Yeah, and they said, which used to feature a sober, trusted voice sitting at the desk, like we talked about. But he said it was the ultimate rational individual. That newscaster that was sitting there, one camera, one desk, forms in his hand,
Logos.
being sober, you know, and then we trusted the news at that time. And then now we have these, it's almost like this video game look to everything. It's like, is this real? Is this fake? Green screen Avenger movies, flash, Godzilla movies, you know, next thing, you know, within seconds,
Right.
you know, all fake.
Correct.
And then he talks about this, and I think it's so interesting. Our nervous systems are so hyperstimulated that when most families sit down for movie night today, every member is also running at least one additional screen that they can flick, you know, to check, comment, scroll, just in case that main feature is too slow. And we all do that, you know. I mean, the second screen, Google talks about that, you know, because they can advertise. Hopefully, they're going to advertise to both screens.
Yeah.
You know, they want to hit you with ads either way. So they want, you know, it's doubles if you have two screens. So they encourage that.
That's why people have trouble with meditation right now. It's got to be, they want it quick,
Right.
immediate impact. They don't realize that these things take time and focus. People wonder why they're not like good at things instantly and then they get frustrated and don't do it. Like going to the gym, like, why haven't I put muscle on immediately? It takes years. These things take time, focus, trust in the self. It requires that logos.
Yeah, and he says it's a technologically induced collective ADD.
That's all it is. It's totally technologically. Dude, how many screens of high contrast are pulling your eyes everywhere?
Yeah.
Go into a bar.
Yeah.
You got someone there, you try to have a conversation, everybody's yelling, you hear someone else's conversation, you're ordering a drink, and there's 30 screens with 30 different games going on.
Yeah, exactly. It's
with
the same.
subtext, asking you to, you know, and it's giving you what the announcer's saying. It's like,
exactly.
You're like, and then by the time you get home, you crash and you're drunk.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not to say that's my life, but I mean, like, that's an experience of a lot of, like, even sports bars. Go to a Buffalo Wild Wings.
Yeah.
You're not going to have dinner. You're going to have ADHD.
Yeah, exactly. It's just going to feed
I got
that.
the waiter, the food, the drinks, the TVs, the music, all these things, all the colors.
Yeah.
You walk in and you're just completely overstimulated. There's actually no focus on the food. You could feed people the worst food in the world, but they're there because, the environment.
Yeah, exactly.
You're just so distracted.
Well, I think that's what restaurants are trying to create now, this customer experience environment. You know, they want you to have, you know, from the meals that they prepare to, you know, the ambiance of the themes to the intent of the chef. I mean, all of that comes through. You know, it's not just about the food anymore.
I want to sit down in an Ethiopian mud hut.
Yeah.
Some tribal hut.
What was the one we were looking at the other day?
The Dogon tribe.
Yeah.
I want to go down to the Dogon tribe.
Cool. Yeah.
I don't care if there's flies all around me. I want to sit there and have this rich experience of food that's been made over like the past 2 or 3 days, like fermenting the bread and then making all these pastes and everything. And I want to live in that moment. I don't want to be distracted from it. I don't need to be upsold on everything else that's happening around in the environment. I want to be right here and focus on this.
Yeah, he says there's too much voltage in the system.
He's doing a good job. A lot of good metaphors. The charge is so high. So not only are you sent all over the place, but it's intense. Think about how bright TV screens have gotten. If you look at an old tube TV,
oh yeah,
it could be in the room running and you're like, whatever, no big deal.
Well,
today, your eyes are ripped to it.
Yeah, even like darkness, like black colors and stuff like that. Like the old TVs, you wouldn't be able to see any of that.
No.
You know, that's why they didn't film a lot at nighttime or whatever. You know, but now they have TVs that specialize in the blacks.
The blackest blacks.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he says this, our own lives, our own dreams, our own values, all are getting ripped out of our hands in the slipstream of accelerating exponential change.
It's not being ripped out of our hands. We're the ones letting it go out of our hands.
Yes, exactly.
I want to make sure that responsibility is not passed off. You are in complete control of your thoughts.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
Don't pass off that
No,
responsibility.
it's you voluntarily giving up your free will.
Of course you are. Did you buy the cell phone?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Did you install Instagram? Did you create an account?
Yeah, exactly.
Did you choose people to follow? Did you go to Buffalo Wild Wings?
Yeah.
Did somebody drive you there?
Yeah, exactly.
Did you choose to order? I'm not done. Did you choose to look at the TV? Did you bring your friends in with you? Right? Did you ask for that experience?
Yeah, it's all we've all agreed. You know, did you put the alcohol in your system? I mean, yeah.
100%.
Yeah, exactly.
This is all you.
Yeah.
No one's ripping it out of your hands. You're the one just going, whew, let it go, buy control.
Yeah. Yeah, and so it's just a catalyst to you. It's just making it easy for you to give into your monkey brain.
Yeah.
So he says, and that's why folks are veering into nihilism and despair. I really like this article, but I like how he put those two together.
Nihilism and despair.
Yeah. Like, look up the definition of nihilism, because I think this is going to be really interesting, because I want to talk about this for a few minutes. He said it's a bit like having an array of solar panels in the desert hooked up to one little golf cart battery. There's just too much voltage in the system for that storage unit to handle, and the result is overcooked cells and electrical fires. So, nihilism, what is
nihilism? The doctrine that nothing actually exists, or that existence or values are meaningless. Relentless negativity or cynicism suggesting an absence of value or beliefs.
So you have despair, because he uses nihilism and despair.
Yeah.
So they just go hand in hand. It's
of
like peanut butter and jelly.
Everything's losing value. They essentially, you've focused so much of your life in the material, and then this material thing has gotten so out of control,
right? So
high potency that now it has no value.
Well, we were talking about that earlier, how adapt we get to things. It's like you go on Instagram and you see some friend of yours and they're in Bali. You're like, oh, that's cool. They're in Bali next. Where before it would be like letters would have been written.
Send me a postcard.
Yeah, you would have gotten
and then you read the whole back
you'd
of
looked
it.
at back,
Yeah.
and then you would have put it on your fridge, and people would have come over and you'd have talked about Jim and Sue being in this exotic country.
You emotionally connect with it.
Yeah.
So even, for instance, with Turtle, right? When we advertise, it's not short, quick, let's try and grab your attention.
Right.
It's a conversation with you.
Yes.
It's a long shot. You're here to live in that message.
Yes.
This is not to sell someone in 5 seconds. This is to be like, let's talk to you. Let's teach. Let's learn from one another.
Yeah, and he says, same goes with trying to process reality through the battery. And he's talking about the battery, like you would see the golf cart battery, of our singular, isolated rational identities, where if it doesn't work out for us in our own lifetimes, we break or give up hope, mostly because we are told and sold a story where it was all supposed to work out for us. If we only wanted it, believed it, bought it enough.
Think about self-help. Self-help
this is what he's talking about. Yep.
Okay.
That's what I wanted to get into.
Or you jump on the fucking Atkins diet and you're like, this is not helping me, right? Or you go on Weight Watchers. Remember they had those Slim Fast drinks?
Right.
You can just hammer those things all day long. We're like, well, look at why am I putting on weight? You know what I mean? Or I go to the gym and it's like, where's my muscles? What's going on? I've been pumping weight.
Or I've got a crystal, didn't do anything for me. I got a pyramid. Why isn't this doing anything?
Yeah, very good. Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's like, I spent all this money buying all this stuff. It's like, where's your focus? Where's your focus? What is going on?
We got a new president that matches my beliefs.
And how short-sighted is that belief, right? Is there something truthful lasting here? No, it's not. And when you go to use these things, you identify with them, and then you identify so much with the failure that you consider it useless, but you haven't put in really the effort required to learn from that thing, to actually interact with this pyramid right here.
Well, and I know we have a lot of 20-something-year-olds. I mean, you're 20-something, Alex, but we have a lot of 20-something-year-olds. And I really think this is very important, is that we're sold a story where it was supposed to all work out for us. Mm-hmm. And these 20-year-olds, I've talked to several of them, and I was talking to a dude the other day, and he was saying this. He goes, I'm 23, and I'm almost discouraged. Because what I see, what other people are doing, I'm not even close to being there.
This is my point. Now your frame of reference is to maybe a very select, isolated few that have put in a lot of effort and have earned some sort of material gain, or it's something that's happened in their life, like Hugh Scholl's gym thing, whatever that might be, this thing that you want. They have gone, that's what they do. But that's all you know about their life. Mm-hmm. And so then your focus, your association is with, well, I want to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Well, you are not Arnold Schwarzenegger. He has his own body. He has his own preference. He does his own things.
Right.
That was his focus. But when you're going through and you're associating, your focus is on 1,000 different things.
Yeah, but if you're 5'3", you know, and
of course you're going to look huge.
Yeah.
If you shorten my arms 6 inches, my biceps are enormous.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, it's. But I like what he said here: wanted it, believed it, bought it enough. So believed it, and we've talked about believe before.
You wanted it, right?
Right.
You didn't need it. You believed it. You didn't truthfully know what was involved. And what was the last one?
Bought it.
And you bought it.
Yeah, you know, it's like,
yeah, you bought it.
I need to buy into this, or physically I need to purchase this to help me.
Everything.
Wanted it though, bro. Let's stay there for a second, because I think this is really, really good. And I want you to talk to this, because we all want things, but in the because this is really, really good. I want this.
Mm-hmm.
So I take resources to get it.
Okay.
And then I got that. And then that is going to make me hope. That is going to make me have a new life.
Sure.
And that doesn't work.
So then what?
So I have to look for the next thing that I want. And then I have to purchase that, you know, or whatever it is, some spiritual camp experience, a conference, a self-help book, whatever it may be, crystals, ayahuasca, yeah, all that stuff. And now I'm like, oh, okay, I wanted it, I believed it, I bought it. And then why didn't I change?
Let me ask you, this is a great question, right? Why didn't I change? What about the thing that you wanted didn't work? Before you even go off and buy the next thing, to say, oh, meditation didn't work, let me try something else, let me buy some crystals. Oh, that didn't work. What is it that didn't work? Why is it that you went out in the first place to acquire this want through a state of belief?
Yes.
Have you asked yourself that? No, because you're only looking at the outside. You never stopped for a moment to take a logical look, have a long talk with yourself about these wants. What are these deep values within me? If you really, truly want something, you set this focus, this zeal, right? I want to get to this accumulation point. That takes time. And I don't like golf. Like, I don't like golf, but I got to give it to you. It takes a long time to be very good at golf.
Yes.
It's not like, oh, you know, golf, I'll get out there, take a swing, the thing cuts right, and you yell 4.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not doing golf ever again. I'm frustrated going down the course. You have to put in the effort. Mm-hmm. Use the sports as an example. This is not something that happens overnight. Look at the growth rate of muscle. It's not something that happens overnight. It takes so much time. And you need to focus on what you truly, deeply want to achieve, not want to own. Because wanting to own or wanting to be like someone else is never going to evolutively align with where you need to be. You're not considering the self. And this is not in a selfish point. You just don't know who you are. And so you become frustrated with this identification of these other things that you thought you needed that you didn't. The real thing you need is a conversation with me. Where's that conversation happening? You never had it.
Yeah, you're almost believing in the creation instead of being the creator.
Don't believe in what you and I are saying here.
Right, yeah.
Go think about it think for yourself.
Like that tree, which is creation, is going to help me. That thing that we've evolved and made, this technology, is going to help me. And
you know what I love? How many different like skin creams are out there?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
So many. My skin sucks.
Yeah.
Why does it suck? Well, I don't have the right cream. You still going to McDonald's?
Yeah, exactly.
You still smoke cigarettes?
Yeah. How hydrated are you?
You just beating the shit out of your liver and your kidneys?
Yeah.
Right? Think about it.
You don't drink any water?
The inside, right? The outside of your body is but a reflection of the inside.
Yes.
The way you act on the outside, the things you say are a reflection of your thoughts internally. The things you choose to purchase and associate with, those wants, are a reflection internally of the mind. There is a lack of thought in the mind, right?
I love that. Yes.
When I see people that buy like those, those twisty boards, remember those came out and you like stand on it? Like, why are you buying that?
Well, there's always the latest and the newest. We got Peloton bikes.
But that's what they do. That's that same fundamental idea of people that's like, we need to keep purchasing these things. What's the next best thing? Oh, losing weight this way didn't work. Why are you not losing weight? You still eat like shit. You eat too much. You're not active. Your thoughts are sedentary. What do you expect to happen? Something on the outside can't fix you. No sort of like cold sculpting thing at some sort of, what the hell do they call that when you get a facelift? What do they call those people?
Oh, the plastic surgeon?
Yeah, no plastic surgeon can really fix it. It's never going to be good enough. Why? Because you're associating with the outside and you always want to continue to fix. It's always that nip tuck. But when have you nip tucked the mind? When have you actually trimmed the fat in here to find that focus? But you're asking for someone on the outside to do it for you. And you'll pay to do it. You'll pay for that want. You believe that the doctor can fix it how you look at yourself in the mirror. I didn't want to put in the effort to run. I just want to cut it off my body. And what you find is that skeletal structure, your blood flow, everything about you, your organs, they're all weak. Just because I cut off the fat on the stomach doesn't mean the fatty liver tissue inside of me isn't still huge. Just because I got a rubber band put around my stomach because I eat too much is not going to prevent me from gaining that weight back in the future. I haven't actually solved what's going on in the mind. That's the problem. It's these wants without a fundamental basis, that logos, that logic of the self that drives me forward. I can't sit there and focus on the newscaster. That's not there for me anymore. I don't have the attention, and I won't give the attention and pay that time and afford it to myself. I don't respect myself enough to give it that time and attention. Instead, I respect everything else, all these other people, and I associate with them, and I become frustrated when my life does not identify with those ones around me, when I do not receive the benefits that have been sold to me.
I love that. And he goes into this, and this is going to be really interesting. If people thought that was interesting, this is going to get better. He said it involves resurrecting the more ancient version of our self-identities, one that is bigger, longer, and deeper than our fleeting personal experience.
Didn't I? I think I just said that.
Yeah, resurrecting the more ancient version of our self-identities. He said so much in the same way that indigenous and pre-modern societies didn't orient around single lifetimes and the promise of personal satisfaction. We can seek refuge, ballast, and purpose in anchoring ourselves to intergenerational struggle and possibility. So when we look at the more ancient version of ourselves, and we see, even in American, we see even here in America with Native Americans, and the way that they had this ability to be able to understand spirit, and I think that's what capital S is what they called it, and understanding, what did they call it? I always forget, where you believe that everything is God, in theology. It's, what I'm talking about. It starts with a P, I think.
Polytheism.
Yeah, polytheism. Yeah. So, and now there's this awareness that begins to happen.
Yeah, you have multiple gods, all this other stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, whether it's in India or wherever, but I, even looking at just Native Americans and seeing, okay, that tree, there is God in that tree. There is God in this person, and in evolutionary process, limited views on that, but this ancient, I think this is a great way to say, okay, remove social media, remove Netflix, remove a phone, and what does it look like standing next to a tree, barefoot?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Go back in time.
Yeah.
And it's not that it's ancient. It's the more primal energy of the self that we haven't focused on. We've diluted it.
That's what he's talking about. It's like even, and I know you wouldn't do this, but even like hunting, that ancient of where it's you versus the animal.
Well, at least, listen, at least you're going out there and making the direct choice to end its life.
Right.
Rather than paying someone to kill these things en masse.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So it can sit there and just go to waste.
But I'm saying that process of hunting, and then being in nature, that's primordial.
It's a much different connection.
Yeah, it is.
You actually have to start to respect this animal, because if I'm actually going out there hunting it,
right,
in a very fair stance, this thing can kill me too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So if I'm going to take on this threat and I really want to eat the thing head to toe, well, it's a little bit of a different experience.
Yeah, deer. I've seen videos of deers killing. They can gore you. There's all kinds of stuff that can happen. Yeah. People don't realize.
And it's dropping back and understanding the value and where you actually sit within creation. As you're this beautiful piece of creation. It's this very primal energy that sits inside you, but you've ignored it. You've distracted yourself from it. And so dropping back to that ancestral line to look at how they used to live, it was simpler. It wasn't as evolved in a sense of consciousness or the ability to actually adapt to things as much, but there was a more closer bridge. How would I say this? It was a little bit closer to the truth.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't totally evolved. They made a basic farming, whatever the thing might have been. But we have done so much that has like made the gap between truth and like creation very opaque. That energy that we are supposed to live with, we've almost like separated away from it. Yes, we have evolved in a lot of different stances, but one of the main ones
you can't evolve away from creation.
Yeah, and well, the thing is, no matter what we do, it's always evolution. Even as lessons aren't being learned, every distortion we make, in the end, it will get to creation. But the thing is, we're only hindering that pace, that evolutive path. We're diverting from it. It's a straight line, like a Sagittarius, right?
Yes.
You shoot the arrow. It's very direct, articulate. You know what it is, but the thing is, we always divert from that path. We choose all these other probabilities that pull us away from it. But the ancient one was a path of less distraction. So in a sense, what he is saying is that it's one that aligned more with the self.
I love that.
Even though it wasn't super evolved, like, technically within society, all those other things, our understanding of science, but it was a more directed, simplified path. But now that we have all these catalysts of experience, many, many things that are happening, the ability for us to, frankly, go across the globe in one day, what do you want to do with these distractions? Now they have the ability for a higher amount of catalyst. Can you refine that back to that very directed, straightforward path, right? That creational path, back to whatever that source might be.
Yeah, and he says this because here's the thing. We might do everything we can and still not make it. There's a philosopher, Jonathan Lear, wrote a book called Radical Hope. He says this: we live at a time of a heightened sense that civilizations are themselves vulnerable. Events around the world, terrorist attacks, violent social upheavals, and even natural catastrophes have left us with an uncanny sense of menace. And I love that word. We seem to be aware of a shared vulnerability that we cannot quite name.
The shared vulnerability is the fact that we're not unified in our thoughts, and we don't respect the human rights of one another. We're so separated. Even though the world is so interconnected, it's amazing how we've driven ourselves actually further apart. It's this weird, paradox we've created of, false separation, a lack of respect. And then you live in that world of anxiety and fear and who is the next threat. Why? Because you can't associate with people. You can't integrate with them. You can't learn from them. You can't meet them where they are. So you're just saying, well, I have to be me on my own time doing my own thing and a separate border from these people. Even though we are interconnected, I want to remain separate because I think there's safety in that. They think there's safety in not knowing. There's safety in ignorance. Well, within their ignorance, you just find yourself in a point of stagnation, a lack of progressiveness. You're closer to death. You're closer to limiting that experience of creation, right? You're even further away from where your ancestral line was actually focusing on the things that were truly important in life. And then as you begin to back out, you become even more diverted in that focus, where it's like, oh, I have this false sense of safety. Now I can continue to distract myself because the real worries don't have to be there. Is that making sense?
Yeah, and this leads us into the last part of this, and we'll get into this and then close. He talks about a radical hope. He said in place of that quid pro quo bargaining kind of hope, where we put on happy faces and wait for the ship to right itself, and he's quoting this philosopher, Lear highlights a fundamentally different kind of hope, radical hope. What makes this hope radical, he explains, is that it is directed towards a future goodness that transcends our current ability to understand what it is. So a future goodness, more than we can even understand it in our limited sight now.
Hope takes time.
Right.
We can be delusional with hope that some sort of God will step in, save us. Right? But you got to really think things through. Hope requires optimism, and it's not just something that people are born with. Optimism is learned. It's learned through experience, and it's learned through understanding that experience. When you do have some sort of negative catalyst that is coming in, it's like, well, how do I want to use that catalyst? How is it when I'm faced with what I would say, something that is a challenge or adversity? how do I maintain this idea of positivity through this adversity? How do I remain optimistic? That is a mindset of growth and progression and evolution that takes time to learn. It's not one that's purchased in a $15 book, or an audio set from whatever that dude's name is that you were talking about, right? Or this pyramid is not going to be the thing that creates hope for me. That's like a false hope. You need to understand what that end goal is. Focus on that end goal, and through time and catalyst and experience, refine your optimism. Refine that excitement for life. But if you lack an excitement for life, if you shy away from confrontation and all those other things, those things that challenge you, you'll never really have a true hope. You'll never really push possibilities or push probabilities to the point of being, this is the positive outcome. Hope is not a thing that is handed to you. It is earned through thought, time, and work, and through a deep, deep perspective of knowing the self and understanding of that self in relation to creation and others around you.
Yeah, he says this, and we'll close on this. The question's not having hope, as Cornel West reminds us. It's being hope.
That's exactly right. That being of hope is living in that optimism, understanding, accepting those catalysts and driving it, doing the work of hope, taking every single step and choice you make that drives us closer to that point, that deep wish we have in our mind. And it's not a wish that sits in baselessness. It's a wish that you're working towards. It's that frame of reference. It's a unifying frame of reference. That's what our hope is. So if you want a hopeful, bright future, work for it. Don't buy it.
Speaking of hope, we want to thank our sponsor, Tartle.co, tartle.co. You can sign up. We have climate stability, human rights, global peace. We have these big 7. Why is it important for someone to sign up on Tartle, Tartle.co? And how is Tartle helping these big 7 issues that humanity's facing?
It's about taking that self-responsibility. I just explained that these things take time. So if you have a bright hope for the future, work towards it. Share your data to those who need that information to help solve these problems. Work with them. Come together. Unify ourselves in the collective of our information and our sharing so that we can alleviate and meet these catalysts that are currently facing us and turn them into a positive, evolutive, bright future for us.
So you can sign up at Tartle.co, and then we want to thank Quality Mazda if you're looking for a new vehicle. A Mazda, our pre-owned vehicle. I think they have over 300. I was talking with someone there the other day.
Yeah.
Over 300 pre-owned vehicles. And they ship to Colorado, Texas. So if we're in New Mexico here. So if New Mexico, Colorado, Texas, and you're looking at getting a new vehicle and you don't want the pressure resales system.
And you hope that it's going to be a pleasant experience.
Or if you're looking for a Mazda, then we encourage you. They're our sponsor, QualityMazdaNM.com.
Thank you.